Thank you so much for coming. We are so pleased to have you here for the special program in conjunction with the currently on view exhibition upstairs, The Universe of Ben Jones, which was very fortunately funded by the Mellon Foundation. And it's been really amazing collaboration between the William Patterson University, where Professor Ben Jones graduated for undergraduate degree, and NJCU, where he taught for more than 43 years, and he's been here still every day since. And I'd like to thank Spicer Rubin Women's Center and Benaida for helping us organize this amazing talk between Ben and Professor Raverty, who recently retired from the university, but maybe some of you are familiar with his art history classes. And the talk will be moderated by Marcy Villa. So, Benaida, would you come here?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Midori. My name is Benaida Rodman Jenkins. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I direct the Spicer Rubin Women's Center for Equity and Diversity. We are celebrating 50 years this year, and it's a pleasure to be able to partner with the Center for the Arts, with our Pride Center, with the Art Department, and with Women's and Gender Studies, with so many people who helped to bring this event together. We are here to celebrate Black History Month. So we're 6 days into Black History Month, so happy Black History Month, everyone. We are so thrilled to be a part of the universe of Ben Jones. We get to celebrate so many Black greats, so many individuals who are from the African diaspora in so many different fields and so many different walks of life. And it's an honor tonight to be able to celebrate someone who has walked among us and who has created among us and who is living out his legacy right before our eyes. So tonight we are celebrating Ben Jones. We're so grateful for Professor Rafferty, who's with us, for Mercy, who will be helping to facilitate the conversation that we share tonight. So it's my pleasure to introduce someone who is new to NJCU campus. They are helping with programming for our Pride Center. Our Pride Center stands for People Respecting Identity, Diversity, and Equity. And it's a pleasure to be able to share what they bring to this campus. Mercy Villa brings a heart that is dedicated to supporting the safety, belonging, and empowerment of queer and trans students at NJCU's Pride Center. They bring a gentle, creative, and healing energy into their work as a teaching artist, facilitator, and local community organizer. They are passionate about co-creating spaces that celebrate the joy and authentic and self-expression of LGBTQIA+ folk. Mercy can be found at the center, connecting students with resources that support their holistic wellness, self-advocacy, and their ability to thrive on and off campus. It is them who will be introducing our artists for tonight. Welcome with me, Mercy Villa.
Thank you, everybody. So it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Raverty, recently retired professor of art history in the NJCU Art Department, where he taught African-American art, among other subjects. Dr. Raverty has published several articles with the International Review of African American Art and has authored the entries on Black artists Romero Bearden and Carrie James Marshall for the New Grove Encyclopedia of American Art, published by Oxford University Press. His feature article on Jones in the current issue of Living Church magazine is available at the back. Ben Jones was born in New Jersey in 1941, a graduate of then Patterson State Teachers College, now William Patterson University, with a BFA. He earned an MA from New York University and an MFA from Pratt Institute. In 1967, he took a position at then Jersey City State College, now NJCU, where he taught for 43 years. Since the 1970s, Jones has made nearly 100 cultural exchange visits to Cuba and is noted by the Granma International of Havana, Cuba, as one of the most important African-American artists of his generation. For more than 4 decades, his multimedia installations have reflected his travel and research in Africa, Europe, South America, the United States, and the Caribbean. Jones has lectured at universities, museums, and cultural institutions across the world, including Harvard University, Howard University, Savannah College of Art and Design, the Wilfredo Lam Center in Havana, Cuba, and the University of Ghana. Please, let's take a moment of honoring and appreciation for Ben Jones as we explore the universe he's created. So welcome, Dr. Raverty, Ben Jones. As we open up this dialogue, we want to first ask Dr. Raverty, what was your influence and impact as a scholar writing about Black artists and the Black art history movement?
Well, I came into the field I started as a painter, but I came into the field in the 70s, when a lot of women entered the field of art history. And I'm part of I'm very liberal politically, but I'm very conservative kind of as an art historian. Because what these women did is they started saying, there's women out besides Picasso and Pollock and all these other white guys, there are women that were very interesting, and their circle needs to be kind of widened. The same thing for me, I came 1990 or so, there wasn't even a textbook that you could really use for African American art, and so I decided this is something that really needs to be done, and so that's why because of the need and wanting to broaden the discourse. So that's
Thank you.
That's why I did. Yeah. Right into it.
And could you please explore with us together the meaning of that article that is published regarding Ben Jones' work?
Well, I think it's not so much that article, and if you have it, I guess it's also available online. It was available in the back. It's coming out in about a week in Living Church magazine, a liberal Protestant publication. The piece what I think is interesting about Ben's work, and we don't remember that because we see him so often. He's always here on campus. We get used to him. He's a very self-effacing guy, in many ways. He's very humble. And we have to remember that really of all the... no, but I mean really all the textbooks, the 2 major textbooks that are now used about Black art, both talk about Ben Jones. He's really a famous artist. And so it's a great privilege to be working with him all these years. One of the things that's extraordinary, and I don't want to talk too much because I had too much coffee making, but one of the things I think that's extraordinary about Ben Jones' work, and this is one that I wrote the article on, and some of his work, this one is not particularly huge, but some of it is very, very large, like 10 by 15 feet, some of your large wallpaper sort of paintings. They're very, very dense, and they have lots and lots of iconography that bring in all different sorts of things to suggest an altarpiece, a traditional Christian altarpiece with wings and a crucifixion in the center. But it also reminds me of some Yoruba type of divination trade. And it's kind of a cross between those two. And I think that's a kind of an interesting thing because I know what my main point was. Many artists, many great artists, even like Picasso, right? After he was about 50 or 60, his work begins to decline. And he didn't do much significant work, even though he lived into his 90s. Some artists, like Michelangelo, who lived to 89, his best work was in his 80s. Same thing with Titian. He lived to be almost 100. Young artists were waiting for him to die because he was so great and so famous and just seemed to live eternally. So we have a survivor from the golden age, in a way, I think, here in Ben Jones. It's a great pleasure to be part of this and to understand an artist that's really keeps growing as he gets older, like an old rare wine that gets better and better as each year passes.
Thank you. So, Ben, would you be able to share your experiences as a Black artist between the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, and how you would compare that in your present experience now?
Well, can you hear me? Okay, good. I was born in the 40s. I was born in 1941. And so if you thought of what the times were like in 1941, especially as a Black person in this country, and you're going to hear me later talk about some of the great jazz women artists like Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and Dinah Washington and Carmen McRae. Those women came up through the 30s. How were women in general thought in terms of equality in relationship to men in the 30s? You know, so when you think of women in general, white women, men were up here, they were down there, you know. So imagine Black women during that time, you know. So I came up through this time in the 50s, and at that time, you think you had a lot of segregation, you know, we ought to think of how far we've come. We still have a long way to go, and how far we've come. So coming up in that time, what I'm really saying is that my education was very Eurocentric. You learned about Michelangelo, you learned about Leonardo, Picasso, mostly white men. Very little about women. Maybe you got Mary Cassatt, something about Frida Kahlo, because sometimes some people are so brilliant that you can't ignore them, you know. So when I think of people like the great singers, Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald, their talent was so phenomenal that it knocked down doors and opened up spaces. But at the same time, these women in the time they were coming up in the 40s and 50s, a lot of times they would be headlining a theater or headlining a hotel there, but they weren't allowed to even walk into the front of the hotel, walk in the front door. So this is a change. So I'm saying all of that to say that the art that I do or did, a lot of it comes out of struggle of a people. And I always like to brag to people, not to just say that, but I like to brag to people, I'm a socialist. I'm a socialist, because all socialism means be fair to all the classes. You see in this city, they're building all this so-called housing, apartments, and they call it luxury housing. Well, a lot of the working class people can't afford to move in those places, you know? Imagine living in a country where 30 to 50% of your income is going to just to pay rent. So how are those people going to get culture? Do you know the importance of culture? Culture is one of the most important things you could have because it gives you level of understanding different people and bringing people together. So when you think of Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan, they brought all different races together. See what the power of art. you know? So I'm laughing to myself as I'm talking to you because I think I'm talking too long, and Vinay's going to give me the look. That's enough. So I always joke with people. I said, my family, we have these family meetings, and one of the things they do at the family meetings, you know, being a teacher for over 40-something years, you know, you talk. So my family, when I'm talking to them too much, they'll say, oh, just shut up. You think you're still in the classroom. So you can tell me to shut up. Okay.
Thank you, Ben. So, in reference to how the empowerment of Black women has opened so many artistic doors and opportunities now, how has your identities impacted your work and how do you express yourself through your
Well,
work?
I feel so lucky to have grown up during the 60s. I call it the Black Renaissance period. The Black Renaissance. And what do I mean by that? If you were into theater, you could see a lot of black theater. If you were into music, you had James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Coltrane. You had a lot of the great jazz musicians. You had a lot of classical people. But I wasn't taught that in school. So that period just felt like it opened up a new a lease on life to me as an artist because it exposed me to great poets like Maya Angelou used to come here all the time and do readings. Yes, and she said Nina Simone used to come here and perform in the 60s. So, and it's so sad that we can't afford to do that now because of the financial problems of the school. But we saw a lot of the greats here. Who was the gay playwright who did America? It was called America something in the 60s and 70s. Say it again.
James Baldwin.
Not James Baldwin. I'm talking about a white person who. He was a very funny, something about America, and it was about opening up this country in terms of all people's lifestyles. You know, whether they're gay, whether they call themselves queer, whether they call themselves this or that, that's what real democracy is, isn't it? Isn't that what real democracy is? So you had all this kind of opening that happened in the 60s to let people. So then what the other thing about the 60s is that because you have to know your identity. You have to know, if you don't know your identity, you're lost. So then it made me go back to Africa. And I visited Africa maybe about 20 different times. And when I went there, whether I was in a country that spoke English or spoke a different language, I knew I was home. I knew I was in the motherland. And because I would see certain things that we took for granted that we do. Let's say if you go into a black church, especially a black Pentecostal church, it's Africa. That stuff, hip hop is Africa, jazz is Africa. So if you have to know history because history gives you an understanding of the present, doesn't it? You have to know history. So it started forming me. It started forming me where I started realizing who I was. And so much of my artwork, you always see that it's connected to Africa, not just because I'm black, but it's a way of thinking. It's a cosmology. You know, what does cosmology mean? How you see the world. How you see the world. And where did the cradle of civilization start? Africa. Here we're celebrating Black History Month, but black people have been here at the cradle of civilization. But they don't teach it enough in the schools, so people don't know. So what happens to people's identity? You have many people walking around and they don't know who they really are. How do they say, if you know who you really are, you live it. So what does democracy mean? That my art tries to deal with democratizing things. You know, to see that we're connected to one another. It doesn't matter you're white, black, Latino, Arab, or whatever. We're all human beings, and we have to see what each of us have to offer each other. You know? So again, I think I'm talking too much, so you can tell me to shut up.
Thank you. Yes, we will have a segment at the end for questions. Yes, thank you.
Can I just mention too, and Ben is a mentor to me as well, but I was doing some investigation for an article that I wrote about 15 years ago. Remember, we were looking at black artists in the 70s and how difficult it was to get shown. So there were artists, but I was surprised to find that other people, you and other people were hanging paintings on the fence to have kind of an instant exhibition up in Harlem. And then Ben was part of founding that gallery, that nonprofit gallery as well. So I think Ben is important not only as an artist, but as someone who's kind of opened up the field to a lot of different people. And because at one time it was very difficult to get shown, as you know.
So what is that saying to you all? People who talk and do nothing, they're just talking. But people who talk and then put it into action can change things. Can change things. So one of the things that I miss being around the young people because you represent energy. You represent life. You represent other new ways of thinking. And I especially have to be around you because you all know that technology and how to use it, and I hate the using the technologies. I got to be around you all to learn this stuff. So the thing is, there's a connection. When I was, I remember one time, my older artist friends said, "Oh, well, these young artists, they don't come up to us." And because when we were young, we would go up to Romare Bearden, like he was a saint. Do you know who Romare Bearden is? Romare Bearden? How many of you don't know who Romare Bearden is? Only a few people. Okay, so most of you, are you sure? I don't see a lot of hands going up, and I think you're lying. I think you're lying. So Romare Bearden is one of the most important American artists who happened to be black. And he came through the 40s and the 50s, but to let you know how important an artist is, their work is in all the major museums around the world. His work is in all the major museums around the world. But look how humble he was. When I was a young person, we could go up to him and ask him for advice, a lot of the young artists. So these older artists were saying to me one day, well, the problem with these young artists today, they don't come up to us like we went up to Bearden and Jacob Lawrence and Norman Lewis and asked for advice and stuff. So guess what I said to them? I said, well, if they don't go up to you, we need to go up to them. Because what's the important thing? Connection. Connection. So this is why my art is trying to, here I go back to as a socialist, you're trying to connect all the classes. Right now, you're living in a country where they've given so much of the benefits to the people who have tons of money and don't need money. You know, is that why you young people have to vote? I'm asking you a question. Do you need to vote? Okay, do you need to vote because who's going to pay for the pollution in the future? Not me, because I'm on my way out. You all are going to pay for it. So you better be concerned about pollution and the environment and all these things. And you have to connect to that because you're going to have to pay for the destruction of nature. You know, when you ever see these programs where they show you that people are throwing plastic into the rivers and into the oceans? Well, what's in those rivers? They're fishes in the river. And what are you eating? The fish are eating the plastic and you're eating the fish. So do we have to be concerned about the environment? Okay?
Absolutely.
Because there's a relationship between health or cancer and all these things and how you live. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you have to catch me because I go off the topic
Thank
all
you,
the time.
Ben. Thank you. So this question is for Dr. Raverty, and of course, Ben, to follow up. How can we preserve and continue to make sure that Black history and Black art is continuously being portrayed in ways where we uplift Black artists?
Can you ask that again?
Yeah, so how can we continue to preserve art history, and how can we continue to empower Black artists?
Well, I think the more Black artists know about Black artists in history, the more they have as a model, as a role model, and things like that. It seems to me that another important aspect...
I just want to interrupt him, Dr. Rafferty, for a second.
No, go ahead, please.
And I'm going to talk about women, and I'm talking about equality between women and men. Is it just women who need to have knowledge of women progressing? Or is it women and men have to change the scenario to make sure we have equality between women and men? So we can't let men get off the hook. So what he just said was right in terms of we have to make sure that more black people have to be exposed. But we need to make sure that all people are exposed. You see what I'm saying? All people. Now, I want to tell you about a statement that I read some time ago. Somebody sent me a statement. You know, black people, we were brought here to be slaves, right? Indentured servants, slaves. Somebody sent me a statement that I have posted up on a wall in my house, and it says, before they were slaves, they were doctors, they were lawyers, they were governors, they were kings, they were queens, they were mothers, they were fathers. What does that suggest? Humanity. You know, when you demonize a people, you know, so we have to make this, that here I go back to socialism, it's all of our work. You know, what is capitalism basically about is that you can get wealth, but if it's just mostly concentrated in a few people's hands, where's the democracy? You know, now here I go being terrible again. Are they teaching you this in the classrooms? No. You know, that's why in my last 3 years of teaching, I was terrible because I would tell kids, the students, all kinds of things that they weren't teaching in the classroom. Because we want to be liberated. You know how in our country we say that especially this city is regarded as one of the diverse cities in America. They have all ethnic groups, all races, you know. But look, as you look in this room, we see all races, all ethnic groups and stuff like that. So I once heard somebody say that in America, most people, many people go to school together, they go and work together, but after that they separate and just go to their own little groups, own little ethnic groups or racial groups. Can we bring the world together that way? No. Okay? So we have to be conscious. So what I'm doing when I'm talking to you today, I'm not just talking about art, I'm talking about humanity. I'm talking about things that make a stronger social fabric.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry to watch me apologize. Oh, Dennis, I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No, but the point I was making is one of the things I dislike most about the art world is its snobbishness. Is this, you go into some of these galleries in Soho and, you know, the people are sitting there at the desk. You know, I feel like, honey, you just answer the phones, you know, don't get too carried away with yourself. But because that's all part of our heritage. We get to go to those places. And one of the things I found when I was teaching here is people feel turned off by the elitism of the art world. And that's why someone like Ben, who's a populist, right? He wants to reach all people. He wants to have work that's didactic, that's not simplistic, but that the message can be easily gotten if you see it and if you immerse yourself in it. He's very politically involved as well. So anyway, I just wanted to put in my thing against elitism and for populism, because art is not just for, it's not baubles for the rich. It's really something that speaks to our humanity and our common spiritual heritage. And that's another important part, of course, of Ben's work, is his work is very concerned with his own spiritual quest and his own kind of, I guess I could call it a Creole kind of a heterodox kind of spirituality, because he was raised a Roman Catholic, he goes to a Protestant church now, but a lot of his work has influence of African diaspora, Yoruba things, Congo ideas, Buddhism, and you know, you're talking about this power, the energy. And in Yoruba, they call that ashe, which is kind of like grace to Christians, you know, amazing grace, except ashe is the power to make things happen. So instead of being a passive vehicle of God's grace and kind of emptying yourself, you become energized by ashe to go and transform the world into the image of God. And that's our job, I think, as artists, is to transform the world. Politically, spiritually, and in every, artistically, yeah.
Thank you so much. And as we talk about emphasizing our own humanity, embracing the humanity of others, and transformation, I want to also go into what is personal liberation as an artist and what is collective and personal healing.
Well, can you hear me? Oh, okay. I'm so glad to be going on 83 years of age. I'm glad. But wait till I tell you why. Because at that stage in your life, or that age in your life, you don't care anymore what people think of you. You don't care anymore. You know, you said, this is what it is. None of us are going to be perfect. But one of the things that we all should try to do is respect all people. Somebody's heterosexual, respect it. Somebody's gay, lesbian, queer, whatever you want to call it. Somebody's from another culture. We have to respect each other. We have to respect each other. But at the same time, respect comes from knowing the other. Knowing the other. How many of you who have friends from other cultures go and visit their home and see what they eat, see what they listen to in music, see what they read? Very good. Okay, that's beautiful. That's what it's about in the end, because we're all, how somebody was telling me, I was asking the question, how old is the universe? And one of these high school students said, oh, it's over 14 billion years old, the universe. We see that we're doing a lot of research and sending up these rockets and ships up into the sky to study planets and the atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. You know, so if the universe is over 14 billion years, how much time are you here? I'm 83 and you're only in your teens or early 20s. How much time are you going to be here in relationship to the age of the universe? Now, what I like about that makes you ask yourself the question, what are you going to do with the short time that you're on this planet while you're here? What are you going to do? Are you just talking? Are you reading? You know, for one of the things that, and this is the old man talking, is that I see so many young people walking through the streets and they're looking at this thing. They're looking at this thing. They're just looking at this thing. All right. I said to myself, here they have the most powerful instrument in terms of information. Now, I think we should look at some things that are just titillating, that we enjoy, that we like. But at the same time, I think we should look at some things that makes our mind expand, that makes our mind grow. I was talking to, you're going to kill me, I forget your name? Chris. Chris is an art major, and he's from South Jersey, you know, and that's a little slower culture. And it's wonderful because you got the seashore down there. He can go swimming anytime. And I like it because it has a nice calmness to it, too, because up here it's crazy, you know? So anyway, so I asked him the other day, I said, oh, do you go to New York to the galleries and the museums and stuff? And he says, well, I'm going this week, and it's one of the few times I've been to go to the galleries. I've been to New York, but not to all the galleries. So I told him, because I go all over the world, and I said, where do most people that I meet in whatever part of the world want to get to visit, at least to visit? To New York City. Now, New York City is one of the cultural capitals of the world, you know? Do you know who Professor Mook is? She's one of the most established musicians in this country. Violin. Okay. Now, so one of the things that we have to do, we have to get to know one another. Do you know what people have to offer you? you know? But if we just stay in our own little bubble, look at the wealth that we're losing, we're not getting. Now, one of the things about this school, you know, last weekend, the music department, the music theater department, what is Professor Dalio? He's the director of theater. They're doing this musical. Do you know this musical that's called Working? It was a Broadway musical a few years ago, won all kinds of awards, and it's about working people. The waitress, the construction worker, the cleaning woman, the teacher. And how many times do we go in a restaurant, we encounter a waitress, but we don't know their lives. We don't know that they have family. So there's this one waitress, one singer, she's doing the part of a waitress, and she said, I'm a cleaning woman. She said, my grandmother, she was Latina, she said, my grandmother was a cleaning woman, my mother's a cleaning woman, and I'm a cleaning woman, but guess what? I'm gonna make sure my daughter is not just a cleaning woman. You need to see this musical. Now, the thing about the music department, it's always been one of the best departments that we have in the school. It's always been one of the best departments, you know. And you need to see the talent. I thought I was at a Broadway show. The singing, you just felt that these people were on the Broadway stage already. The music, the acting, even the sets. And guess what? It's all free. Are you taking advantage of it? And it's the last performance. It was last weekend, and then this week, it's this Saturday at 7:30 and 3 o'clock this Sunday. How many are you going who claim you want culture? I want to see some hands up. I want to see. All right, good. I've seen a lot of hands. You need to see it, and it's free. So this is what, with all the financial problems this school is going through, the talent is still here. That's why I keep on coming. You know, I go by the art department almost every day because I use the gym, and the art department's right next to it. But I go there, and I go into the art department, Martha, and I said, I know some of these professors sitting there, he retired, when is he going to go away? I'm not going anyplace. Because I love this place. I love the place because I've seen so much talent come out of it, you know? So the point is, here I did. Let me go sit down because once again, I get up talking about something else.
Thank you, Ben. So we're going to wrap up and we're going to open up the space for Q&A. So if you're anyone who wants to ask Dr. Raverty and Ben Jones a question, just please stand up, your name and a question.
My name is Sharonda Davis. My major is fire science technology. I wanted to say to you that I admire you when you didn't get accepted in Seton Hall because of your application, and you worked at a supermarket, and then you went to school at night at William-Patterson until you can get into school. I admire you because I went to school in 21. I got my high school diploma. I went to Union County College, graduated in May of 23, and I'm here getting my bachelor's. And I graduated in 25. That's to say that you can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it. And I was just amazed that, like, I work, I got a full-time job, and you did the same thing, and you accomplished so much in life. And I just wanted to congratulate you on it.
I just want to answer something first. You know, I love to tell people two things. I came from a family of 15 children, poor. If we saw a piece of fruit in the refrigerator, we thought we got rich. So I'm saying, think of what you have today. You know, Martha knows I go to Cuba a lot. They have nothing in comparison to what we have here. But they do more with the little that they have than what you see people doing here. And if somebody's studying music, the quality. Somebody's studying art, the quality. You see a kid that's in grammar school, their work looks like they're in high school. You know, so when Cuban musicians come here, people have to take notice because the training is there. In the end, whether you have a lot or whether you have a little, it's all about work in the end. It's about hard work. Okay, I'm sorry.
So, I know you came from a time. I know you came from a time. Well, my name is Shakima Ellis. I'm a psychology major.
Okay.
I know you came from a time where it was hard, but what pushed you to keep going?
Okay. I don't know. I just, first of all, a funny story. One of the things I learned early from my father emphasized education a lot, him and my mother. And my mother wasn't an educated woman. She went only as far as, I think, the 9th or 10th grade. But my father, I think he had a first year of college or second year. And they came from the South because in the South, they came from Charleston, South Carolina. In the South, it was very difficult for black people to have a life because of the segregation. So like migrants, you know, incidentally, talk about migrants, I want to give you a little slant. You know how we have this so-called problem of migrants in this country. This is why it's so important to read. If you do your reading about the migrants coming in this country, I read this article that the amount of migrants coming into this country is not much different than it was in the 30s, 40s, 50s. The only problem is that it's piled up because when it got to the 70s, the 80s and 90s, they started cutting them back and cutting them back. You know, and so people, do you think everybody wants to have a decent life? So if you're living one place and you don't have a decent life, what is the natural thing you gonna try to do? Find somebody place else to live. Now, do we also know that United States goes into these so-called countries, mostly Latin America and the Caribbean? They set up companies paying the people practically nothing. But then they'll bring the products here and sell them for these rip-off prices. See, you got to get the whole education. So now here you came here, you took the land from the Indians, you took the land from the Mexicans, and then you want to claim they shouldn't be coming in here. You know, so again, we have to make connections between things. What's going on with Israel and Gaza, that's criminal. You're killing babies, children, despite what anybody did wrong. And why is the United States just saying, oh, well, let them bring food and medicine in there? United States is at the same time they're offering to give Israel, we want to give you $4 billion more. For what? Okay, are they teaching you this in the school? Yeah, okay, so we have to speak up. Somebody has to speak up. You know, why do you think the thing with, they liked Martin Luther King until he started talking against the Vietnam War? Okay, so your education, I'm saying to you as students, it's what you do also. The classroom can't do everything for you if you're really going to be educated. That's why you have to travel and see other places, see other cultures, see other ways of thinking. You know, because otherwise, it's like, you know, a rich person and a poor person, and the rich person think they have the privilege of everything. No, no, no. No, we all should have privilege, right? Okay, now I talk again too much, but you had a question.
Thank you.
Oh, you did? Okay. They can't hear you.
Oh, I just wanted
Stand
to...
up.
Okay.
I always made my standards. I always made my, you know, they have us sitting in these chairs, but I want to give you a trick. I always would make my students stand up when they're talking, because guess what? When you stand up, you start commanding the space. And then when you stand up, see how they like these tables and people sit there, and you start moving around. You even command the space more. Okay? So it's good to stand up. Don't just sit there comfortable, but stand up, because then the space is your sport space, and you got the full attention. And also, when you look people straight in the eye, they look at it. This is what I used to do with my students. I'd be talking to them, I look them straight in the eye. They couldn't turn their head. See, now, like we do in church, You know, when the preacher preaches, you know how at the end it said, now where's my love offering? Where's my love offering? That's another way. Give me some money for the love offering, you know. But use these things. Don't just empower yourself. Empower yourself. Because you go into a good school. No place is perfect, but you go into a place that can help form you. But you got to do part of the work, don't you? Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for at least speaking
Okay.
today.
I want to thank you.
It means a lot
I want
to
to thank
me.
you all. I want to thank you. It's a blessing to me. So it's a two-way street. It's not just about me. It's about us.
Professor?
All right. So this is such a privilege. Ben and I have known each other for many, many decades. The love just keeps growing. And I'm sorry I couldn't be here last week for the opening because I was at the Grammys. But I am with Ben in that this school has so much to offer, and it's in the essence. So I brought my class. I have 25 students here from my class that's called Music Now. Right? You all here? Give a shout. Right. And what we start off with is not music now. We have to find out what was music before, what came before, to put it into perspective and to understand. So their first assignment was, who do you listen to now? Well, go back. Now we have Google. About years ago, we didn't have Google, right? Who did the SZA? Who did SZA listen to? Who inspired her? Who inspired the person that inspired that person? And go back 3 generations. And the message we're going to start to get in. I'm having them come here to listen to you because what you're talking about transcends all art forms, transcends visual arts. It transcends music, it transcends dance, any art form, because it's about communication. And your work has always been about communicating. It's not just, at first you look at it and it's beautiful. It's the colors or it's interesting, and then you start looking at it, wait, what's that in there? What does that mean? And there's so much in there, and I'm telling my students not just to look at the artwork, read, some of them have the descriptions, and I said, come here and ask Ben about them. And find out what does it mean, because it's commentary on what's going on currently. And that's historic, because these works that you've done in 1960, that's historic. That's referencing things that were going on back in that time. So, and what I'm doing what you're doing. But thank you so much. Yeah.
Get a student question in here. This is a student right here.
I'm sorry. So my name is Christopher. Nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure to be asking this question right now. So I wanted to talk about art, because I know you were a performer before, but art in general, all senses. We know that when an artist talks, it changes people. And later that people changes society, right? But I myself have tried to make some art pieces and to try to express a message or something. And I realized that art also changes you as an artist. And sometimes when you're making an art piece, it can take long, it can be a very short time. So how does your art change yourself as a persona, your own identity? Because you have traveled a lot, and that can be seen through your art.
Well, I'm going to answer his question by saying this. Many years ago, we had a professor here. She was a professor of political science. And so that means you're active with the politics and with the things that how people are living and things they're doing in the society. So I said to her, I think art always changes society. She said, sometimes. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You know, it's not one thing or the other. You know, I would say that the artist tries to do something that will bring some change. You know, we try, because we're people. We might be successful, we might be unsuccessful. We try to do the best that we can. You know, that's why I think it's so important. I tell all the art students, Martha, that do you have, if you're an art major, visual art major, do you have friends in the music department? Do you have friends in the media department? Do you have friends who are studying theater? Do you have friends who are studying poetry? Because guess what? That makes you broader. It helps you to draw from other things that you might not have thought of that are good ideas. You know? So in terms of change, we would hope that we can change things, but if I talked in all honesty, I can't say it always does. I don't know if I'm answering your question. Okay?
It's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know if I answered that like a politician, though. You know how they always talk. Okay. Now, this was a student I had maybe 40 years ago. Guess what I'm going to tell him to do? And he has a bad leg. Stand up. Command the room.
I'm standing anyway. I like Dr. Rafferty's comment or bringing up the fact that there's real snootiness in the art world now. For someone, I'm 67.
Use the microphone, Richard.
For someone who's been doing artwork for 40 years, I've seen how difficult it's been for myself because I don't have a load of credentials, and I kind of do it the hard way by running around door to door, supposedly, as it were, to promote my art, and I'm still doing that. And that's all fine and good, except I can't get my work into a gallery. Why? Gee, I didn't go to Rhode Island School of Design, or I didn't go to blah, blah, blah school, or blah, blah, blah school. And that's just around here. Never mind Soho. I mean, I used to be represented in 2 Jersey City galleries until they closed and the people died away, and then I can't get in any new one. Now, this is just my experience. I'm sure other artists have experienced this also, and younger ones too. There's all kinds of channeling involved. I understand that some of it's necessary, but it seems like a lot of it's very unnecessary, and it seems like it's very elitist. And I think that's kind of getting in the way of people trying to express themselves and the good people trying to get themselves out there. Again, like you mentioned, the snootiness, the channeling, the elitism, got to be a friend of a friend kind of a thing. Just like that, know what either one of you would say about that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, oh, yeah. Yeah, the elitism in the art world, but this is one refreshing thing about working with African-American artists, is that kind of pretentiousness, you don't find that. I remember when Ben and I went to
Again, I always get him every time he says something as an absolute. I said, that's the best way to make your argument be defeated. Some African-American artists are not pretentious, some are. Now, why? You're people, in every group you have all the different types. You know, but generally, now that's something generally, if you go to an opening of black artists generally, even look at the chemistry of how they relate to one another. People walking up to you, hugging and kissing and loud sometimes. But I mean, different cultures. But we respect all cultures. Respect all cultures, because and you appreciate who they are and some of their differences. Some you like and some you don't like.
But I guess what I was saying is I remember going to conferences at Howard University where Ben introduced me to these famous artists, and they're very down-to-earth, regular people. They weren't, you know, way up in some sort of high thing. And that's another aspect of why I have enjoyed working with African-American artists and in that kind of milieu. And by the way, I have been so accepted by the black community here in the last 20 years. It's a great gift for someone who's, you know, just a white guy that likes his stuff. And I want to thank all of you and all my students and all my colleagues all these years. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something, and I'm talking generally about black people. If you come among us and you're acting all haughty, like you're all this and all that, we're not having it. Because our whole thing is we're all human beings. We're all human beings. So again, you have to know cultures. You have to know cultures. You know, Mercy is from Mexico, And she would tell, when she told me she was from Mexico, I said, I have to tell her this story about of artist friends of mine who have traveled to Mexico. So I said to her, my artist friends asked me, had I been to Mexico? I said, I haven't been there. I said, I wanted to go, but I haven't been there. And guess who was part of the reason? When I would look at most articles that were about Mexico in terms of things that were happening with the people, what would most of those articles be about? The drugs, the crime. So I started getting a little scared. I don't know if I want to go to Mexico. And then my artist friend said, just like any place else, yes, some of that stuff goes on, but you're safe just like you would be. What goes on in New York? What goes on in Jersey City? We don't have crime here? So, I mean, so you have to take these things with a grain of salt, because she said, because my artist friend said to me, do you know some of the greatest museums in the world are in Mexico City? So look what I'm losing at. They say, look what you're losing as an artist. You know, I'm getting ready to go to India next year, and I always wanted to go, but when I was younger, when people would tell me, oh, the flight is 14 hours, and I said, oh, I can't stand to be on a plane 1 hour, let alone 4. But finally, I have no choice going to the other end now. I'm going to go to India, because I always felt that I was called to that culture, because I'm so fascinated with Indian culture. And in that culture, there's so many different cultures within the Indian culture. Okay, so we have to come out of our comfort zone and experience other places, other people, other places, other lifestyles, and wake up, because how they say, you're only coming through one time, and they said nobody came back to tell us what heaven was like.
Thank you so much, Ben. So for the last 3 minutes before our reception, and as a way to wrap up this very special dialogue that we're all learning from, I just want to ask you, for any artist here, especially young artists, if anyone is struggling with accessibility into the art world, or if anybody is struggling with personal blockages that prevents them from creating, what is your advice to them?
I like that question, because here I stand it up again, is that when I think of the so-called hard times, you know how they used to have this stereotype line, the starving artist. I never met a starving artist in all my life. Maybe I read about something like that in a book, but I never met an artist who starved to death. Okay? Now, yes, all of us, we're going to have some good times, we're going to have some hard times. But when I think of my life in relationship to what those people are going through in Gaza, what's my problem? I don't have a problem. You are fortunate enough to be in this institution, and I don't see anybody who look like they're losing weight. You know, when the students when it came break time, they're ready to go to the cafe and get food and everything. So I used to make my students, Martha, they had to get the Sunday New York Times every Sunday, because I found that they were lacking in knowing about culture. And the New York Times could give them some facet of what was going. Then they had to keep a journal, and they had to read articles, come into the class to report on the articles, and I used to joke with them, you better not bore us, because I'll get you. Okay, now, the classroom cannot give you everything. Life is not going to give you every blessing, but you're still fortunate. So do you see your blessing? Guess what? Gloria, you appreciate this. Dr. Bozeman, do you know Dr. Bozeman? Good.
I'm going to stand up.
Good. Dr. Bozeman, I love her so much, because when she was here, she didn't take any tea from the fever from the administration. When in the 60s, let me tell you the difference between the 60s and today. In the 60s, when the administration tried to do things that weren't going to serve the students, guess what we did? The professors and the students got together. We marched up in the president's office and said, we'll turn this place out. But I don't see that in young people today. I don't see it in you all today. You know, so you're giving, Don't give these people more power than they actually have. I used to tell the students, you're more powerful than us professors, but you don't organize. And so this way, this situation that the school is in now, we were never in a situation like this with all this financial debt. Why? Listen to what I'm going to say, because this is really, they're going to really get me. Corruption. Corruption. Okay? But how can people get away with corruption when other people are not doing anything? You know, I used to tell the students, they would complain about tuition going up or this type of thing. I said, I'm on all your side and what you're complaining about, but you all don't take it further. You don't organize. You know, as a socialist, we have an expression, don't complain, organize, organize, organize. It's about organizing. You have power, but you haven't claimed it. Some of us haven't claimed it. You know, and that doesn't only go for students, that goes for some of the faculty. You know, so again, if you want to change, what's that expression, what's that phrase? Be the change you want to see. Be the change you want to see. You know, so I hope I see all of you up to see the exhibition in the gallery up on the top floor. And I have a joke about this school. Even if you don't come to the Gloria, you're gonna love this. Even if you come up there and don't look at the exhibition, one of the things this school does, they have refreshments. I've never seen a school that's always feeding people on, you know. I said, when I become the president, I'm taking away all this food. The real food is what you're coming for. See the show, listen to the talk, go see here, listen to the music. That's the food. That's another kind of food. And that's the real food. And guess what? You won't be gaining weight that you don't need anymore. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Just as to let you all know who folks are on the panel, some of you came in late. This was such an esteemed panel with Dennis Rafferty, him, who graduated, who used to work here, retired here. We have our program specialist, Mercy Villa, they, them from the Pride Center. And of course, the icon, the legend, the living legend, the universe of Ben Jones. Now we want to share with you a couple of things. Yes, there is a reception upstairs. We encourage you to have a look at the artwork. Talk to Professor Jones while you have him here. Connect. It is very, very powerful that you have the opportunity to relate, to talk, to ask questions. In addition, please know that there are a number of events going on, right? During Black History Month and beyond. The entire semester, we are celebrating Ben Jones. There are musical events, there are other discussions. As Ben mentioned, there's Working, which is phenomenal. I saw it last week. It's a musical, but all of these things are results of the Mellon Foundation, which is a very prestigious organization, and Ben Jones is a recipient of a grant and able to do all these things with the help of the Center for Arts, Midori, a professor in art department. All of these individuals are coming together. Thank you to all of the professors who brought your students here today. We appreciate you. This is invaluable. Thank you.
I forgot one thing. I want you to, how many of you take African studies, Afro-American studies classes? Okay, so let me introduce the director of Afro-American Studies. You understand that? Okay, you need to know them. You need to know him. You need to know him because he's very important in terms of bringing the information and the experience, the African Americans experience, the African diaspora experience.
That's Professor Jermaine McAlpin. So talk to him as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all we have. Please go enjoy the exhibit. Thank you for coming. Have a good night.